The following is a free-for-download audiobook from the website krishnapath.org. Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, Chapter 11, Service to the Lord. Any recommended path for self-realization can be successful only when it is mixed with devotional service. This was explained by Narada Muni, the spiritual master of Vyasadeva, when Vyasadeva was not satisfied, even after compiling heaps of books of Vedic knowledge. Vyasadeva was sitting in a state of depression by the banks of the river Saraswati when Narada Muni arrived. Upon seeing Vyas so dejected, he explained the deficiency in the compilation of his various books. He said as follows, quote, "Even pure knowledge without being completed by transcendental devotional service does not look well. What to speak of fruitive activities when they are not in devotional service? How can they be of any benefit to the performer?" End quote. There are many sages who are expert in performing austerities. There are many men who give much in charity. There are many famous men, scholars and thinkers, and those who are very expert in the Vedic hymns. All such achievements are certainly very auspicious. But unless they are utilized for attaining devotional service to the Lord, they are unable to award the desired results. Therefore, in Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukadeva Goswami offered his respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord, who is the only one who can award such success. It is accepted by all classes of philosophers and transcendentalists that no one who lacks knowledge can be liberated from the material entanglement. Still, knowledge, without being mixed with devotional service, holds no possibility of awarding liberation. In other words, when Gyan, or the cultivation of knowledge, opens the path of devotional service, then alone can it give one liberation, and not otherwise. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, this is also stated by Brahma, quote, "My dear Lord, devotional service unto you is the best path of self-realization. If somebody gives up that path and becomes engaged in the cultivation of knowledge or in speculation, he will undergo a troublesome process without achieving any desired results. Such a person, just as a person who beats the empty husk of the wheat cannot get the grain, so those who are engaged simply in speculative knowledge cannot achieve the desired result of self-realization. Their only gain is trouble." End quote. The Bhagavad Gita says in the 7th chapter, 14th verse, that this material nature is very strong and not surmountable by any ordinary living entity. Only those who surrender unto the lotus feet of Krishna can cross over the ocean of material existence. The self-forgetfulness of the living entity, forgetting that he is eternally the servitor of Krishna, is the cause of his bondage in conditional life, and the cause of his being attracted by the material energy. That attraction is the shackle of material energy. It is very difficult for a person to become free as long as he desires to lord it over the material nature. It is recommended, therefore, that one should approach a spiritual master who can train him in devotional service, and thus he can get out of the clutches of the material nature and achieve the lotus feet of Krishna. There are divisions of human society, like the Brahmins, or intellectuals, the Kshatriyas, administrators, the Vaishyas, businessmen, and the Shudras, or laborers. And there is the Brahmachari, or student, the Grihastha, the householder, the Vanaprasthas, retired, and the Sannyasis, renounced life. And, in every case, if the individuals lack engagement in devotional service, Krishna consciousness, even though engaged in their prescribed duty, they cannot get release because of their material consciousness. On the contrary, even by discharging their prescribed duties, they glide down to hell. Therefore, all persons engaged in their prescribed occupational duties must cultivate Krishna consciousness in devotional service if they want liberation from the material clutches. In this connection, Lord Chaitanya cited a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, which was delivered by Narada as the path of Bhagavat cultivation. He said that the 4 divisions of human social life, as well as the 4 different orders of life, are born out of the gigantic form of the Lord. The Brahmins are born out of the mouth of the universal form of the Lord. The Kshatriyas are born out of the arms of his personality. The Vaishyas are born out of his waist, and the Shudras are born from the legs of that personality. As such, they are qualified in different modes of material nature within the form of Virat Purusha. Out of these 4 orders of life or social divisions, if anyone is not engaged in a devotional service of the Lord, then in spite of his being in his prescribed occupational functional duty, he falls from his position. Lord Chaitanya says that those of the Mayavadi or impersonalist school may artificially think themselves as one with God, or liberated, but according to him and to Srimad Bhagavatam, they are not actually liberated. In this connection, he quoted a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam 10th Canto, 2nd chapter, in which it is said, quote, "Those who think that they are liberated in the Mayavadi philosophical way, but who do not take to the devotional service of the Lord, even after undergoing the severest type of penance or austerity, and even after sometimes approaching the supreme post, still, for want of devotional service, fall." End quote. The Lord explained that Krishna is just like the sun, and Maya, or the illusory material energy, is just like darkness. Therefore, one who is constantly in the sunshine of Krishna does not have any chance of being deluded by the darkness of material energy. This is very nicely explained in the 4 prime verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, and is also confirmed in the 2nd Canto Srimad Bhagavatam 5th chapter, which states, quote, "The illusory energy, or Maya, is ashamed to stand before the Lord." End quote. But the living entities are constantly being bewildered by the same illusory energy. The living entity in his conditioned state discovers many kinds of word jugglery for getting apparent liberation from the clutches of Maya. But actually, a person who sincerely surrenders unto Krishna, even by saying only once, quote, "My dear Lord Krishna, from this day I am yours," end quote, at once gets out of the clutches of the material energy. This is confirmed in the Ramayana, Lanka Kanda. There, the Lord says, quote, "It is my duty and vow that if somebody surrenders unto me without any reservation, then I give him all protection." End quote. Somebody may develop the idea of enjoying fruitive activities or liberation or jnana or perfection of the yoga system, but if such a person by chance becomes very intelligent, then he will give up all those paths and engage himself in sincere devotional service to the Lord. The Bhagavatam also confirms in the 2nd Canto, 3rd chapter, that a person, whatever he may be, either full with all desires for material enjoyment or desires of liberation, if he is actually intelligent, should engage himself in perfect devotional service. Persons who are ambitious for deriving material benefit from devotional service are not pure devotees, but because they are engaged in devotional service, they are considered fortunate. But they do not know that the results of devotional service is not material benediction, but because they engage themselves in devotional service of the Supreme Lord, ultimately they will come to the understanding that material enjoyment is not the result of engagement in his devotional service. Krishna says that such persons engaged in his devotional service are certainly foolish for wanting some material benefit in exchange. Such persons are foolish because, instead of achieving the stage of love of Godhead, they try to accept something which is poisonous for them. Although such persons want material benefit from Krishna, Krishna, being all-powerful, considers the person's position and gradually liberates him from such an ambitious life and engages him in devotional service. And when he is actually in devotional service, he forgets his past ambitions and desires for material benefits. In the Srimad Bhagavatam 5th Canto, 19th chapter, this is confirmed as follows, quote, Lord Krishna certainly fulfills the a desire of his devotees who come to him in devotional service, but he does not fulfill such desires as would cause miseries. In spite of being materially ambitious, because they are engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord, such devotees are gradually purified of desire for material enjoyment and come to desire the pleasure of devotional service. Generally, people come to the association of devotees for mitigating some material wants, but the influence of a pure devotee frees a man from all material desires, and he relishes the taste of devotional service. Devotional service is so nice and pure that it purifies the devotee, and he forgets all material ambitions as he engages fully in the transcendental loving service of Krishna. A practical example is Dhruva Maharaj, who wanted something from Krishna, and for that reason engaged in devotional service. But when the Lord appeared as four-handed Vishnu before Dhruva, he said, quote, "My dear Lord, I engage myself in your devotional service with great austerity and penances, and thus I am now seeing you. It is always difficult to see you, even for the great demigods and great sages, and I am now pleased, and all my desires are satisfied. I do not want anything further. While I was searching for some broken glass, I have found a great and valuable gem." End quote. Dhruva Maharaj stated his full satisfaction, and he refused to ask anything from the Lord. The living entity who is transmigrating through the 8,400,000 species of life is sometimes likened to a log which is gliding downstream on the waves of a river. Sometimes, by chance, the log comes to the shore and is saved from being forced to drift further downstream. There is a nice verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam in which every conditioned soul is encouraged. Quote, "Nobody should be depressed, thinking that he will never be out of the clutches of matter, because there is the possibility of being rescued, exactly like the log which floats on the river for some time, and then comes to rest on the bank." End quote. This fortunate opportunity is also discussed here by the Lord. Such fortunate incidents are considered the beginning of the decline of one's conditional life. They occur if there is the association of pure devotees of the Lord. By association of pure devotees of the Lord, one actually develops his attraction for Krishna. There are different types of rituals and activities. Some of them develop into material enjoyment, and some of them develop into material liberation. If a living entity takes to ritualistic activities which develop into his pure devotional service to the Lord, in the association of pure devotees, then he naturally develops devotional service in his mind. There is a nice verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam 10th Canto, 51st chapter, where it is stated by Muchakunda, quote, "My dear Lord, a living entity, while traveling in this material world through different species of life, may develop toward liberation. By chance he may come in contact with pure devotees. Only at that time is he liberated from the clutches of material energy, and he becomes a devotee of yourself, the personality of Godhead." End quote. When a conditioned soul becomes a devotee of Krishna, Krishna, by his causeless mercy, trains him in two ways. He trains him by the spiritual master from the outside, and he trains him from the inside by the supersoul. In this connection, there is a very nice verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam 11th Canto, 29th chapter, in which it is said, quote, "O my dear Lord, if somebody should get a duration of life like Brahma's, still he would be unable to express his gratitude to you for the benefits derived from remembering you, because out of your causeless mercy you drive away all inauspicious conditions for a devotee, expressing yourself from outside as the spiritual master and from inside as the supersoul." End quote. Somehow or other, if somebody gets in touch with a pure devotee and thus develops a desire for devotional service to Krishna, he gradually rises up to the platform of love of Godhead, and thus he is freed from the clutches of the material energy. This is explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam 11th Canto, 20th chapter, where the Lord says, quote, "For one who becomes attracted by the topics of my activities out of his own accord, being neither lured nor repelled by material activities, the path of devotional service, leading to the perfection of love of God, becomes possible." It is not possible, however, to achieve such a stage of perfection without being favored by a pure devotee, or a Mahatma, a great soul. Without the mercy of a great soul, no one can even be liberated from the material clutches, what to speak of rising to the platform of love of Godhead. This is confirmed in the Srimad Bhagavatam 5th Canto, 11th chapter, spoken in connection with the meeting of the king Rahugana of the Sindh province in Siberia with King Bharat. The king expressed surprise at seeing Bharat's great stage of spiritual perfection in life. Bharat replied, quote, "My dear Rahugana, no one can attain the perfected stage of devotional service without being favored by a great soul or pure devotee. No one can attain such perfectional stages simply by following the regulative principles of scriptures, nor by acceptance of the renounced order of life, nor by prosecuting the prescribed duties of householder life, nor by becoming a great student of spiritual science, nor by accepting severe austerity and penances performed for realization." End quote. Similarly, in the same Bhagavatam, 7th Canto, 5th chapter, in connection with the conversation of Prahlad Maharaj with his father, Hiranyakashipu, the following statement appears, quote, "When the atheist father Hiranyakashipu inquired from his son where he got such an attitude of devotional service, the boy replied, quote, So long as one is not favored by the dust of the feet of pure devotees, then he cannot even touch the path of devotional service, which is the solution of all the varieties of problems of material life." End quote. Lord Chaitanya said to Sanatana Goswami that all the scriptures stress association with pure devotees of Godhead. The opportunity to associate with a pure devotee of the Supreme Lord is the beginning of one's complete perfection. This statement is also confirmed in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st Canto, 18th chapter. It is said there that the facility and benediction achieved by the association of a pure devotee cannot be compared with anything, neither elevation to the heavenly kingdom, nor liberation from this material energy. Lord Krishna also, while giving instruction to Arjuna in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, confirmed this as the most confidential instruction. In the 18th chapter, 65th verse, the Lord said there, quote, "My dear Arjuna, you are my affectionate friend and relative, and therefore, for your benefit, I am giving you the most confidential knowledge. Just become always mindful of me. Become always a devotee of mine. Become a constant worshipper of me, and just become a soul surrendered to me. That is the only way by which you can achieve my abode. Because you are my very dear friend, my most confidential knowledge is disclosed herewith to you." End quote. Such direct instruction of Krishna to Arjuna is more important than any Vedic injunctions or regulative service. There are certainly many Vedic injunctions, such as ritualistic performances, sacrificial performances, regulative duties, meditation, and the speculative process of knowledge. But Krishna's direct order, quote, "You just give up everything and become my devotee, my worshipper," end quote, should be taken as the final order of the Lord, and one should follow that principle. If one is convinced by this direct order of the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita, and becomes attached to his devotional service and gives up all other engagements, then he undoubtedly becomes successful. Srimad Bhagavatam also says, to confirm this statement, that one should be engaged in other paths of self-realization only so long as one is not convinced by the direct order of Lord Sri Krishna. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, the direct order of the Lord is to give up everything and be engaged in devotional service. This firm conviction is known as faith. Faith means that one is firmly convinced that simply by devotional service to Lord Krishna, everything else is performed, including the regulative principles of ritualistic duties, sacrifices, performance of yoga, and the speculative pursuit of knowledge. Everything else is performed if one is convinced that devotional service to the Lord includes everything. This is also found in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Canto, 31st chapter. It is said there, quote, "As by watering the root of the tree, the branches, the twigs, the leaves, and the fruits become nourished, and as in supplying foodstuffs to the stomach, all the senses become satisfied, similarly, simply by devotional service to Krishna, all other worship and all other processes are completed." End quote. Such a faithful and firmly convinced person is eligible to be elevated as a pure devotee. Now, amongst the devotees there are three classes according to the degree of conviction. The first class devotee is one who is conversant with all kinds of Vedic literature and at the same time has the firm conviction mentioned above. He is a first-class devotee, and he can deliver all others from the pangs of material miseries. The second-class devotee is firmly convinced and of strong faith, but has no power to cite evidence from revealed scriptures. The third-class devotee is one whose faith is not very strong, but is eligible to be promoted to the position of second-class devotee or first-class devotee by the gradual cultivation of devotional service. It is said in Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th Canto, 2nd chapter, that the first-class devotee always sees the Supreme Lord as the soul of all living entities. Therefore, in seeing all living entities, he sees Krishna and nothing but Krishna. A devotee who places his full faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who makes friendships with the pure devotees, who shows favor to the innocent person, and who avoids those who are atheistic or are against devotional service, such a devotee is called a second-class pure devotee. And a person who is engaged in the devotional service of the Lord according to the direction of the spiritual master, or by family tradition, and worships the deity of the Lord, but has not much cultivation of knowledge in devotional service, and does not know who is a devotee and who is non-devotee, such a person is called a third-class pure devotee. The last mentioned are not actually pure devotees. They are almost in the devotional line, but their position is not very secure. The purport is that when a person shows his love for God, and his friendship for the devotees, and his mercy for the innocent, and his reluctance to the non-devotees, he becomes in the category of a pure devotee. Such a person, by developing devotional service, can perceive that every living entity is a part and parcel of the Supreme. In each and every living entity he can see the Supreme Person, and therefore he becomes highly developed in Krishna consciousness. At this stage, he does not make any distinction as to who is a devotee and who is non-devotee. He sees everyone in the service of the Lord. A pure devotee, however, continues to develop all great qualities in his body while engaged in Krishna consciousness and devotional service. It is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th Canto, chapter 18, that anyone who has attained pure, unalloyed devotional service to the Supreme Lord develops all the good qualities of the demigods, whereas a person who hasn't developed pure devotional service to the Lord, in spite of his being materially qualified, is sure to go astray as he hovers on the mental plane. Therefore, his material qualification is valueless.